Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. The budget deadlines and the milestones are going to be coming fast and furious. And we want to call your attention today to a looming budget gap a mid-year budget gap in New York City of $2.2 billion. And that is for the year that we're in the middle of, that ends in June. We're going to talk about why that's pretty unusual. And we're facing, and you'll say, well, every January, New York City projects a deficit in the out years. So why is this remarkable? I asked myself, okay, there we go, thank you. What you can see here on this slide is that a mid-year gap of the scale we face right now is actually to essentially pocket some of that good news, roll it over to the next year, and address what are typically out-year budget gaps. So again, what we're seeing here is budget showing a deficit that we have to plug by June. How about the out years? Let's go to the next slide, please. Again, you would be right to observe that we often project. This is far beyond what we saw last year, and I believe any year since the 2008 financial crisis. Economic slowdown. That would be my first assumption as well. That turns out not to be what is driving our gaps. In fact, low likelihood of recession in 2026. And if we look at numbers here closer to home in New York, we see many indications of a strong. We are seeing tourism numbers bounce back. We are seeing tourism numbers bounce back. We're seeing Broadway attendance back up to pre-pandemic levels. We're seeing Broadway attendance back up to pre-pandemic levels. And most importantly, we are benefiting health. Now, there are challenges in the economy, and most dramatically in the near total low-paying jobs. I don't want to minimize how serious the hiring freeze is, and we're going to be talking how serious the hiring freeze is, and we're going to be talking a great deal about it in the days ahead. But we are not facing a slowdown in our tax receipts, up 6.8%, building on a strong increase last year. Property tax receipts as well, looking extremely strong. So all around, the revenue's coming in. So what is happening? How is it that gaps totaling $12 million in this year and next year combined? How is this happening? And the answer is the budget practices of the previous administration. First, an over-reliance expenses. This is a typical measure in how much we're enduring this year versus pushing out into the future. And we can go into more detail. Some of that gets very technical. But in New York City, unfortunately, for years, but it has gotten out of hand of late. I talked about expenses we know we're going to incur. Overtime in the workforce, shelter expenses, special ed expenses. The scale of the under-budgeting is now at a level we haven't seen in quite some time, particularly in one area that I want to focus on right now, which is our housing voucher program known as City FEBS. I believe the only city in the country that has essentially its own version of Section 8. We've got a housing voucher program here in New York City beyond the limited resources of Section 8. We're making all these available to our reporters, but I want to go to the graph here that shows just how dramatic the under-budgeting for City FEBS is. This program is growing at a pace of 4% every year and a half. And you're seeing that we're not accounting for that in what had been the previous administration's projections. And that this dramatic pace of growth and this dramatic under-budgeting does not account for the expansion of the program that is currently wrapped up in court. That would expand eligibility in a variety of ways, these are important goals. But our office estimates that if this measure, again, currently tied up in court, were to be implemented, it would add range, I said $6 billion to $20 billion over 5 years. There are a lot of unknowns about the pace of enrollment after an You have to make a lot of assumptions. But even at the low end, even if it's $6 billion, this is a significant extra budget burden, again, not accounted for in the current. We're entering budget season. Really, we get into high gear next week. And we're going to have to make some tough decisions about revenue and expenses. Then we avoid the difficult trade-offs, for example, that budget cuts would entail. And you're going to hear me talk a lot about this in the day. They want to grow their workforces, where they want to rent more office space, where they want to build, because of the economic vitality. It also helps to solve our budget challenges because it brings more revenue in without us having to make more difficult choices, particularly on cutting vital programs. This is a big challenge for all of us, a challenge for the mayor and the city council and the comptroller and everyone who cares about the budget. We have a couple goals 2 weeks ago. Secondly, we want the city to end the practices that got us into this mess, reliance on one-shots, and particularly this long-running practice of underestimating expenses. And look, we've made some progress already. Kudos to the governor and the mayor for agreeing on a pretty significant expansion in childcare, a good pilot. But it's got to be done in the context of honest budgeting, or we're simply going to make these problems much more acute in the years ahead. The city's proposal due in mid-February. We have a long way to go. This, for me, is an opening step in the budget process. Our goals today are first.
Do these projections take into consideration the insolvency of the Health Insurance Stabilization Fund? I'm wondering if you had the opportunity to read your predecessor's audit of that fund and what you make of this recommendation.
Thank you, and I appreciate your focus. But I think it's pretty clear that the fund has outlived its previously stated purpose and needs to be retired at this point. But the Labor Committee, but we're going to be, I think, very involved in the effort to make sure that we clear out those obligations. I'm going to ask Francesco to clarify whether No, they do not. That'll be a matter for negotiations, but we as a city need to worry about those costs. I apologize, I did not. Yes.
For the budget proposal expected on February 1st, how does this budget affect the priorities for different policies that the fund has proposed, child care, et cetera? Is there
Of the scale that we're projecting for next year, something we haven't seen outside of an economic slowdown in New York City, certainly not in an environment raised in over multiple years. That's normally how major policy change is rolled out in New York. Also takes time to build out complicated programs. I think the mayor has spoken openly about not just the financial, but the number of years to fully build out at scale. So this is a challenge, but these are overcomable if we have good budget practices. And
$87 million in investments to Palantir, and you've been sort of very against ICE. Obviously, Palantir is one of ICE's biggest technology.
Look, I want to start by saying how absolutely appalled I am by the fact that we have masked, unnamed, heavily armed, poorly trained, unaccountable federal agencies terrorizing who shot her. This is frightening, and I'm worried for New York City. I'm worried for America right now. I now want to talk about our task here as being fiduciaries on diversity. That means that we own everything. We own stocks and bonds. We are in the American market. We are in every single economy globally. That's what it takes. And We have objectionable practices. We are aggressive shareholders, and we are flexing our muscle. We own these companies. We have a vote for their board of directors for 2026. I don't have news on that today, but you can expect in that activism in 2026.
Just to follow up, how are you accounting for anticipated shortcomings or clawbacks from the Trump administration?
Billions more to Washington every year than we get back. We are a donor state. We are subsidizing red states like Mississippi to the tune of billions of dollars a year. In that context, it is outrageous that they would seek to dial back the fairly limited funding that we're already receiving relative to the scale of our economy and what we contribute to the federal budget. Active criteria, funding streams established by the United States Congress. There's no legal basis to cut those grants, and thank God we have Tish James to court based on similar threats and consistently won, and we expect she will in this case. And as for the pretext that the president is using is to fight crime in New York City, not to participate in civil immigration enforcement. We have a division of duties in law enforcement. The NYPD exists to fight crime. You don't want witnesses to crime to be scared to come forward and speak out because of their documentation status, or victims of crime, for that matter, to be scared to speak out because of their documentation status. So we have very good for it. Public safety funding to do all that is really reprehensible.